our mission really is to make it safer to move people and things around. And so that safety mission is really inherent in what we do. And so we feel a sense of urgency to get the technology out to more, people and places. At the same time, we want to balance, I talked about building trust, and it's not only with, our potential riders, but it can, be anywhere from state regulators to, local city officials, law enforcement officers. And that trust building, what we've learned is it takes time. And so we weight that, equally important to that, feeling that sense of urgency to get the technology out there. And so we do spend a lot of time building trust. And that's really, I mentioned when I was on stage that we do consider the technology part of what we've done to be solved. And, we're doing some things like, tackling some last, areas around freeways and complicated pickups and drop-offs like at airports. But by and large, that's been solved. And really it is now, how do we, when you have something that's so fundamentally, like new and novel, how do we make sure we take the time to build that trust before we, scale it, on a large scale? What gets me most excited is I love the fact that we are bringing fully autonomous technology to the masses. And what I mean by that is, we're not working on like a 6-figure car in Silicon Valley that only a small, portion of, folks out there are going to be able to afford to buy and experience. It's really heartwarming to see our riders in Phoenix and, in San Francisco and LA and, soon Austin, really the range of people that are using our service and that get to experience that technology. I kind of I love that about Waymo and the fact that we're, taking that approach to bringing this technology to market. A lot of the feedback, I'd say, our driving feels very safe. People feel that. What we thought early on is that we were going to have to do a lot of work to make sure that our driver felt like a human. And what we've actually learned over time is, there are going to be moments where we might, for example, over yield to maybe a situation or take our time, because we're not going to, rush through a situation maybe like a human driver might. And what we were worried about is that, are people going to be patient and understand that, it's not because our technology isn't capable. It's just that, we see in 360 degrees, we have all these sensors. And so we're able to kind of perceive the environment a bit differently than a human, can. And so what we found is that people are very accepting of that, slightly different behavior from time to time, that they do feel that our driving is very safe. So that's the first thing. And then you'd be surprised. We get a lot of feedback on a lot of features that, around like music, for example, and the fact that, we might add a feature to do X, Y, or Z. And it kind of surprises us because we think, well, it's a self-driving car. And, we have people that are, really excited about being able to play their own music in the car, those types of things. And so when you have the time and space all to yourself, you really kind of, a light bulb goes off and it's like, okay, I can, listen to what I want to listen to, or I can finish that work call, or I can spend some time with my kids, as we're kind of going from school to soccer practice and have those little moments all to myself. And that really comes with having that space all to yourself. I think it'd be easy for some people to maybe guess that the folks that are taking rides with Waymo are very techie or they're very early adopters. And that might maybe skew then towards like a younger demographic. And it's not true at all. We actually we have a range of just demographically in terms of ages and, all sorts of, low income, high income. And it's really about this openness, to technology. And, like you were just saying, I hadn't even thought of this. It's the same kind of experience I think that our riders have where they take a ride or two and they're like, wow, this is awesome. And I want more of this.